Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Crowdfund Birmingham series. My name's Sammy Morger, I'm part of the team here at Crowdfunder, and today we're going to be talking about creating your project. So, first of all, for those of you who were in the last session we were talking about planning your project, so mainly focusing on these 3 areas. Now, if you haven't watched the first video, you can find it on YouTube. You can also link back to it from the Eventbrite page that you signed up for today. And I definitely recommend doing that so that you've got a really strong foundation for this second part today. We're going to be going into more detail on these 4 key elements. First of all, the description, that's the written story on your project page. The video, of course, rewards, and finally, setting targets. Worth me mentioning as well at this stage that if you haven't downloaded and had a read through the second part of the Crowdfund Birmingham pack, which is all about creating your project, I definitely recommend doing that before you continue on. A lot of the things that we're going to be referring to in this session are in the pack there, so do make sure you've got it to hand as we go on and forwards. So first of all, let's have a little look at what makes a great project page. This is one of my favourite projects actually from a couple of years ago now, one which I always use as an example of what makes a great project page. So let's have a little look at it in a little bit more detail. So it has a really sort of great specific title that tells you that it's all about Growhampton. It has a video there which is about 3 minutes long. It's got a really bright image that's there at the top when you first go on. You can see as you start to go down that it's really visual. And what they do really well is they actually reflect what it is that they're all about at Growhampton very well on their project page. So there, essentially, it's a cafe in a shipping container based at Roehampton University, and they were looking to expand that. And they also plant and grow their own produce and also have chickens and lots of little nice bits like that. So they incorporated all of those elements really visually into their page. So as we go down, we can see not only that texture in terms of images, but also really clear headings that help us to guide us through their story. Really great use of testimonials here as well, where they've got what their customers say, and again, they've done that in a really visual way. And it all makes sense as you go through. You're kind of left without any questions. They've featured some images of their rewards and things like that as well, and a really strong finish about what's next. They've got a really strong, what we call a call to action, and a bit of fun at the end as well. So it works really well and was a fantastic success for this project. You can see also as we've been going down the page these rewards on the right hand side, and you can actually see if you look back at Growhampton's project page how many people pledged on each reward. So I definitely recommend doing that, and the link to that project again is crowdfunder.co.uk/Growhampton, just like it's spelt there in the title at the top, so do pop by and have a look. You'll recognise this as one of the examples from the pack as well, if you're familiar with that, and of course there's some more examples in there as well which may be more relevant for your project. So looking at building your project page, you should have a really good idea of who your audience is by now. So now it's all about finding your hook when you're telling your story. First of all, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And what we mean by that is not just physically, you know, what is it if you're trying to build a community space, great, well, you're trying to build a building. But actually, there's a little bit more than that in terms of what you're trying to achieve. Is it that you're trying to stimulate, you know, the local economy? Is it that you're creating jobs? That you're getting people out and meeting each other locally, that you're getting young people active. Whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, make sure that you really go into some detail on what those key benefits are for the people who are going to sort of directly benefit from the project, but also for people that you're driving to that page. So if you're trying to stimulate more action in the community, it might be that although the project isn't specifically targeted at those people, some of the people viewing your page may also benefit from that as kind of a side effect, if you like. Next thing to really figure out is what makes your project great. Now you can swap the word great out for many other words. What makes it unique, interesting, exciting, different. That's what we're looking for here, is what makes you guys stand out from the rest. And finally, a little bit of information about who it is that's behind the project. Not only will that build a bit of credibility in what you're doing, but it will also mean that the project comes across as a much more human. People fund people. So don't be afraid to show your face, tell people your name, introduce your team. All of that kind of thing is going to give your supporters the confidence that you are the right people to make this happen. Now, of course, once you've got your text in line, definitely recruit someone to have a read through. Get someone to copy check, maybe check your spelling and your grammar, check that it all makes sense, that you haven't missed something really obvious out. It's sometimes hard when you're very close to a project to see it from that very sort of objective view. I know I've worked with projects in the past where they've been raising money for an event, and they realise just before going live that they hadn't actually put the date on anywhere. So do keep an eye out for those obvious little mistakes and make sure you're not missing anything out. Once you've got that, just as we were looking at on Growhampton, really important to add some visual texture to the page. Now, we're not just talking about things like photographs, though of course they're really fantastic. We can also be talking about testimonials, subheadings to make it really clear, maybe even maps, if that's something that's relevant to your project, or even infographics. If your project is tackling a particular issue, perhaps it'd be useful to back up your story for you to show some data around that issue. And a more interesting way, of course, of showing that data than just reading off a load of numbers is to find an infographic or even create one yourself that illustrates that point. Here we're looking for pictures of people as well. We want to see real people, humans, bright, colourful images. So again, if you know someone who is nifty with a camera, don't be afraid to recruit them onto the team and get them to suggest anything that you can do to add that texture to your page. Of course, the other way of telling your story is through the medium of video. Now, important for me to mention at this stage that you don't need to have a video. It's not essential. If you do have one, it will appear at the top of your page, just like we saw with Growhampton. That will actually replace your project image. There's lots more advice on making a video in the pack, but the basics to really remember is it doesn't have to be professional. Just grab your smartphone. An iPhone is absolutely fine. That's doesn't need to be any more than that. It doesn't have to be really long either. Short and sweet is much better. 2 minutes really is a bit of a maximum. If anything, I would go less than that. And do get someone to help you. The more people we can get in front of the camera, the better. Definitely yourself, if you're brave enough, perhaps other people who have to benefit from the project or are involved with the project. And do write down some key points to make sure that you stay on track with what it is that you're saying. Sometimes over-scripting can come out a little bit wooden if it's not something you're used to doing. So just have some key points, get the camera rolling and just start talking, see what comes out. So next up, rewards. Now this is often the area where we get the most questions. We don't have a product, we don't have anything we can give away as a reward. What on earth am I going to do? Now, worth me mentioning again that rewards aren't actually essential. You can run a project on donation only on Crowdfunder. That's absolutely fine. If you are offering rewards, we find that generally the amount that's given goes up. So it's normally sort of at 11-ish pounds for donation only platforms, whereas we actually see it's more like more like 50 pounds if you're offering a reward. So think about who your audience are. Remember, you've got that network map from the first session that we spoke about. Work back from your audience of what is going to be worthwhile to them, what's valuable to them. Is it an invitation to a cookery masterclass, or an invitation to come along and learn about gardening? Or actually, is it to come along to a tea and dance event or a bake sale? All of those kind of things where actually it's quite a good way of connecting with your local community can be really great rewards to offer. Now, if you don't have any products or services yourselves that you can offer, it might be that other people locally do. So particularly any partners or any other local companies or businesses that might want to contribute in some way and perhaps aren't able to contribute financially, they're not able to put a pledge on, it might be that they're more than willing to offer up something that you could give away as a reward, just like you might do normally for a raffle, for example. Sponsorship is a really good one as well. If you don't have any sort of traditional sponsorship avenues that you can use, some ones that I've seen work really well is perhaps sponsoring just this specific part of what you're doing, the bit that you're crowdfunding for. So if you're raising money for a new minibus, or to revamp a room, for example, then they could sponsor that specifically. Something else which works really well actually is sponsoring an award. So if you were a sports club, you might offer a company the opportunity to sponsor the Player of the Year award or something like that. Again, there's a lot more advice on what kind of rewards work really well in that pack, so do check back on there. And of course, you can always get in touch with us if you're really stuck, and someone here will be able to help, and I'll give you some more information on how you can reach us towards the end. So thinking now about your target. Setting a target is a little bit of a balance between what's realistic from your audience and what you actually need in order to make your project happen. There's a few things that you can note that will be really helpful when you're working out the sums, and I find it more useful to think about your target in terms of people more than money sometimes. So by working out 1 in 20 people who look at your page will make a pledge, and working out how much on average people will give, you can figure out how many people do I need to reach in order to raise the amount that I need. And then you can look at your network map and see if the two match up. Of course, do take into account any cost for fees and anything that it's going to cost you to deliver on your rewards as well. That's really important to make sure that you have enough money to actually make your idea happen in the end. And generally speaking, if you aren't really sure and you think, actually, I can maybe do with £1,000, that would be enough to get us going. But 2,000 would mean we could do everything we want to do. Generally speaking, the better advice is to do the lower amount as your initial target, and then have the higher number as your stretch target, which is basically a new target you can set once you hit your first one to keep everyone motivated and keep it going. So it doesn't stop when you reach the top. You can aim to then hit your first target in the first sort of 2 to 3 weeks. That gives you a really great success story and something that you can use to really to get the campaign going all over again for that last week of funding, however much time you've got left. You also have the choice on Crowdfunder to choose between all or nothing funding and flexible funding. All or nothing does exactly what it says on the tin. You have to hit your target in order to receive the money. If you don't reach your target, no money moves, your backers aren't charged, there's no fee to you, but you don't get the money. Flexible funding is basically keep what you raise. So instead of having to hit your target, any amount that you raise, you get to keep. Now, people often ask at this point, why would anyone go for all or nothing? Flexible funding sounds like the much safer, easier option. And it is really. If you're working for an organisation or your group, and you know that actually any amount of money that you raise can be put to use, so it's all useful, I'd say flexible funding might be a good option. But all or nothing is much better as a motivator for both you and your audience. You're much more likely to go on and raise the amount that you need if you can give it a good push with all or nothing. For example, if you're looking to raise £5,000 and you have 4,000 already, it's much stronger to go out to your audience and say, we just need to raise this last 1,000, and then we can make this happen. That works really, really well as a message. So do have a think about that and which one it is that you might want to opt for. If you've made it this far and you haven't added your project to Crowdfunder yet, now's the time to do it. So head on over to the Crowdfunder page and click that add project button. Start playing around with it, start putting some text in, have a look at what happens when you add rewards and get to grips with what it is that you need to do. No one can see anything that you're doing unless you send them a link until your project goes live. So don't worry about having a rough draft that you're working on. And if you do have any questions at all, you can reach me directly on Twitter. I'm at Sammy Morger. If you have any quick little questions that I can answer. Anything more in depth, or if you're after some more one-to-one advice, you can get in touch with us via email as well, and that's support@crowdfunder.co.uk. Now, our next session is going to be after Easter, when we're going to really focus on running your project. That's how you promote it, how you market it to your audience, how you get your pledges in and get off to a really strong start. That's going to be 4 p.m. on Wednesday, the 26th of April. So I hope that the session today has been useful for you, and please do go back through and rewatch any parts that you need to. The video will be here on YouTube if you want to send it to anyone else to have a look. Make sure that you're using the packs alongside these sessions. I think that's really, really key. And do make sure that you've had a quick look at part 3 of the pack before our session next time. I hope to see you then. Thanks, bye.